The council chambers were massive. Jiho sat in the lowest section, far from the center where the powerful species gathered. He had been Earth's ambassador for 15 years. 15 long years of begging, pleading, and being ignored. Today was different. Today something inside him had broken. The holographic display showed images of Colony Omega-7. Burned buildings, empty streets, bodies. 20,000 humans were dead. 20,000 people who had trusted the Galactic Council to protect them. Counselor Tavek, a tall reptilian creature with cold eyes, barely glanced at the images. His scales were a deep purple, marking him as one of the oldest and most powerful members. He waved a clawed hand dismissively. "These pirates were not under our control," Tavek said. His voice was smooth, practiced. "The Velkari Empire cannot be held responsible for every rogue ship." Jiho felt his hands shake. He forced them to be still. Behind him, he knew Captain Mirai was watching. She commanded humanity's best warship. She had wanted to respond to the attack with force. Jiho had stopped her. He had believed in the system. "This is the 7th attack in 3 years," Jiho said carefully. He kept his voice steady. 7 attacks. No investigations. No justice. No protection. High Speaker Norinth floated above the assembly, the ancient energy being glowed with soft blue light. Its voice echoed through the chamber like wind through caves. "Ambassador Jiho, we understand your frustration. However, investigations are expensive. They require resources we cannot spare. The Velkari have given their word. That must be sufficient." Dr. Hyun sat beside Jiho. The young scientist had joined the diplomatic team 5 years ago, full of hope and dreams. Now his face was pale. His hands gripped his datapad so hard it might crack. "I have documented every incident," Hyun said, standing up. "Every attack on human colonies. Every trade route we were assigned through dangerous space. Every request for defense technology that was denied. The pattern is clear." Tavek's eyes narrowed. Other council members shifted uncomfortably. No one liked when the quiet species spoke out. "Pattern?" Tavek hissed. "You see conspiracy where there is only the natural order. Your species is young. You must earn your place." "We have earned it," Jiho said. His voice was harder now. 50 years of service, 50 years of following every rule, paying every fee, accepting every insult. And what have we received?" Norinth's glow dimmed slightly. Annoyance. Jiho had learned to read the energy being's moods. "We have matters to discuss," Norinth said. "There is a new proposal. Junior member species will contribute 40% of their industrial output to council operations. Additionally, young citizens will serve in auxiliary military forces." The words hung in the air. 40%. Nearly half of everything humanity produced. And their children, sent to fight in wars that weren't theirs. Hyun looked at Jiho with wide eyes. Mirai, watching from the gallery above, stood up slowly. Her hand moved to her communicator. "That will destroy our colonies," Jiho said. "Our people are barely surviving as it is. You want to take half of what little we have?" Tavek smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Your species should have considered that before expanding so aggressively into space. Resources must be shared. The strong support the weak. This is the council way." Something broke inside Jiho. He thought of the families on Omega-7. He thought of the miners on distant asteroids, working dangerous jobs for little pay. He thought of the young people who believed the Galactic Council represented hope and unity, all lies. He looked up at Mirai. She nodded once. A small nod. She had been ready for this moment. Maybe she had always known it would come. Jiho stood. The council chamber fell silent. A junior ambassador standing without permission was a breach of protocol. He didn't care anymore. "For 50 years humanity has been part of this council," he said. His voice carried through the vast space. "We came in peace. We came believing in unity. We believed you when you said all species were equal." He looked around the chamber, hundreds of species. Most of them looked away. "We were wrong. This council does not represent unity. It represents exploitation. You take our resources. You ignore our deaths. You deny us protection while demanding our service. You treat us as tools to be used and discarded. Norinth's glow turned red. Anger. Ambassador, you forget yourself. No, Jiho said. I remember myself. I remember what humanity stands for. What we will not accept. He took a deep breath. This was it. The point of no return. Effective immediately, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council. We will honor no treaties. We will pay no tithes. We will recognize no authority but our own. We came to you in friendship. You answered with contempt. Now you will learn what you have lost. The chamber erupted. Voices shouted in 100 languages. Translators struggled to keep up. Tavik was on his feet, scales flushing dark with rage. Norinth blazed like an angry sun. Jiho turned and walked toward the exit. Hyun grabbed his datapad and followed. Above them, Mirai was already leaving, her fingers flying across her communicator. She would be giving orders. Earth's fleet would be moving. As Jiho reached the massive doors, he heard Tavik's voice behind him. You will regret this, human. Your pathetic species will come crawling back within a cycle. Jiho didn't turn around. He just kept walking. They had no idea what was coming. The council chamber buzzed with noise for 3 days after the humans left. Representatives from 300 species argued about what to do. Most were angry. Some were confused. A few were quietly worried. High Speaker Norinth floated above them all, glowing with amusement. The ancient being had seen species come and go for thousands of years. Humans were just another young race throwing a tantrum. They will return, Norinth announced. The chamber fell silent. Humans have no allies. Their technology is primitive. Their colonies are spread thin across dangerous space. Give them one cycle. They will beg to return. Tavik stood, his purple scales gleaming under the chamber lights. He was smiling. I propose we make an example. Choose one human colony. Show them the cost of defiance. They will learn quickly. The vote passed. 300 species agreed. Only a handful abstained. None voted against it. What the council did not know was that humans had been preparing for this moment for decades. Deep inside Earth's moon, Admiral Deho stood in a command center that officially did not exist. Screens covered every wall, showing data from across human space. He was 68 years old with gray hair and sharp eyes. He had spent 40 years in the military, and 30 of those years planning for this day. Dr. Hyun entered the room still shaken from the council session. He had believed in the Galactic Council. He had believed they were good. Now he felt like a fool. Admiral, Hyun said quietly, tell me we have a chance. Deho smiled. It was not a nice smile. Doctor, let me show you something. Commander Yuna, bring up the files. A woman with short black hair appeared on one of the screens. Commander Yuna ran human intelligence operations. She had agents on dozens of worlds in places the Council thought were secure. We know everything about them, Yuna said. Every military base, every trade route, every communication relay, every weakness. We have been mapping them for 30 years. Hyun stared at the data flowing across the screens. Thousands of files, millions of pieces of information. But our technology, he said. The Council has weapons we cannot match. Ships that are faster, shields that are stronger. Deho laughed. It was a harsh sound. They denied us access to their weapons, so we built our own. Different weapons. Better weapons. While they relied on what the Council gave them, we innovated. We adapted. We learned from every war in human history. He pulled up schematics on the main screen. Weapons Hyun had never seen before. Railguns that fired metal slugs at incredible speeds. Magnetic mines that could disable shields. Drone swarms that moved like flocks of birds. The Council thinks we are weak, Deho said. They are about to learn the truth. The first attack came 3 days later. Boyoung was a civilian engineer on the colony called New Horizon. It was a mining colony, small and supposedly unimportant. He was working in the engineering bay when the alarm sounded. Velkari battle fleet incoming, the automated voice announced. All personnel to shelter. Boyoung's hands shook as he pulled up the sensor data. 12 warships. Large ones. The colony only had basic defenses, or at least that is what everyone thought. The lead engineer, an older woman named Kira, grinned. Power up the real defenses, she ordered. Boyoung watched in amazement as hidden platforms activated all around the colony. Weapons he did not know existed came online. The colony had looked defenseless. It was a trap. The Velkari fleet approached confidently. They expected an easy victory. Instead, they flew into hell. Railguns fired. Metal slugs moving at enormous speeds tore through Velkari shields like paper. The shields were designed to stop energy weapons, not solid metal moving that fast. Magnetic mines drifted through space, invisible until they attached to Velkari hulls. Shields flickered and died. Engines went dark. Drone swarms poured from hidden bays. Thousands of small, fast machines overwhelmed the Velkari targeting systems. The drones were not very strong individually, but there were too many to stop. In less than an hour, 11 Velkari warships were destroyed. The 12th managed to escape, its engines damaged, leaking atmosphere. Boyoung stared at his screens. His hands had stopped shaking. Around him, the other engineers were cheering. Kira patted his shoulder. "Welcome to the real war, kid." Captain Mirai stood on the bridge of the UNSS Perseverance, humanity's flagship. She watched the battle reports with satisfaction. New Horizon had performed perfectly. Now it was time to send a message. She opened a broadcast on all council frequencies. Every species in the galaxy would hear this. "This is Captain Mirai of the United Nations Space Service. You thought humanity was weak because we followed your rules. You thought we were dependent because we asked for your help. You thought we were afraid because we chose peace." She paused, letting her words sink in. "You were wrong about all of it. We followed your rules because we believed in order. We asked for help because we believed in cooperation. We chose peace because we are not monsters." Behind her, the bridge crew worked silently. Every eye in human space was watching, but make no mistake. We do not need you. We never did. Stay away from human space. Leave us in peace. That is your only warning. She cut the transmission. In the council chamber, Norinth's glow had turned from blue to dark red. Tavik stood frozen, his confident smile gone. The Velkari ambassador was shouting about revenge. Others were calling for immediate military action. A few, the smarter ones, were very quiet. High Speaker Norinth had lived for thousands of years. It had seen empires rise and fall, and for the first time in centuries it felt something unfamiliar. Fear. 3 months had passed since humanity left the Galactic Council. The Council had assembled the largest military force in recorded history. 300 warships from a dozen different species formed a massive fleet. Their mission was simple: find the humans, crush them, make them surrender. Admiral Krenth commanded the fleet from his flagship. He was a veteran officer who had fought in 20 campaigns. He had never lost a battle. His purple uniform was covered with medals. His confidence was absolute. The humans had military installations scattered across their space. Krenth's plan was to capture them one by one. With 300 ships, it would be easy. The humans only had 50 warships at most. The Council would win through simple, overwhelming force. But when the Council fleet arrived at the first human colony, they found nothing. The colony had been evacuated. All the people were gone. All the useful equipment was gone. Only empty buildings remained. "This is strategic withdrawal," Krenth told his officers. "They fear us. They are running. We simply need to find where they are hiding." The fleet moved to the next colony, empty, the next one, also empty. Colony after colony, they found the same thing. Humans had abandoned everything, taking only what they could carry. General Hanul watched the Council fleet from a hidden observation post. She was 45 years old with short black hair and sharp eyes. She had spent 20 years studying guerrilla warfare. Now she would teach the Council what it meant. She touched her communicator. "All units execute Phase 1. Across 100 light-years, human strike teams activated. Small ships, fast and hard to detect, hit Council supply convoys. The convoys were lightly defended. The Council never expected attacks on their supply lines. Within days, the Council fleet was running low on fuel and spare parts. Jiwon sat in a small room filled with computer screens. She was 28 years old, brilliant and absolutely ruthless. Her fingers danced across keyboards as she hacked into Council communication networks. False orders flooded Council channels. Ships were sent to the wrong coordinates. Supply requests were deleted. Weather reports were changed. Krenth thought he was getting accurate information. Half of it was lies. The Council fleet scattered, chasing ghosts. Every time they thought they found human ships, they found automated drones broadcasting false signals. Every time they tried to establish a forward base, hidden mines destroyed their equipment. Every time they thought they had figured out the human strategy, that strategy changed. Commander Yuna's intelligence network worked overtime. They knew where every council ship was at every moment. They knew which supplies were running low. They knew which species were losing faith in the mission. Krenth stared at his tactical display. 3 months of operations and they had destroyed exactly 0 human warships. They had captured exactly 0 human installations. Meanwhile, his own fleet had lost 37 ships to ambushes, accidents, and equipment failures. His second officer approached carefully. "Admiral, some of the allied species are asking when we will engage the human fleet in actual battle." Krenth wanted to scream. "There is no fleet to engage. They refuse to fight us directly. Then how do we win?" Krenth had no answer. Back in council space, a different crisis was developing. Without humans, the galactic economy was collapsing. Factories could not produce goods because human-made components were missing. Mines stood empty because humans had run the operations. Trade routes fell apart because human traders were gone. Dr. Hyun compiled reports from across the galaxy. On the industrial world of Kraith, unemployment had reached 40%. Skilled workers had nothing to work with. On the agricultural world of Verdant, food rotted in warehouses because there was no way to transport it. On Station Gamma, the main power reactor was failing because no one knew how to maintain it. Humans had done that job. Minor species were suffering most. The elder species like the Velkari hoarded resources for themselves. The small weak species were left to starve. Some began to rebel. "Why are we fighting humans when our own people are dying?" Ambassador Jiho watched the reports with grim satisfaction. He took no pleasure in others' suffering, but the council needed to understand. Humanity had not been their servants. They had been their foundation. And foundations do not care how tall the building is. When the foundation leaves, everything falls. Admiral Deho met with his senior officers. "We have won the defensive phase. The council fleet is bleeding resources. They cannot sustain operations much longer. Now we move to Phase 2. "What is Phase 2? One of the younger officers asked. "We make it personal." Human strike teams began hitting council installations deep inside supposedly secure space. Not military targets, infrastructure, communication relays, power stations, medical facilities. Nothing that would kill civilians directly, but everything that made civilization function. The message was clear. If you can reach our space, we can reach yours. Your homes are not safe. Your families are not protected. This war is not an adventure happening far away. It is here. It is now. Council species began withdrawing their ships. Why should we fight humans to protect the Velkari when our own worlds are under attack? The Grand Alliance began to fracture. 6 months after the invasion began, Admiral Krenth sat alone in his command center. His fleet had shrunk from 300 ships to less than 200. He had lost 50 ships and gained nothing. Morale was terrible. His superiors demanded results he could not deliver. A message came through on the diplomatic channel. It was Captain Mireille, Admiral Krenth. "I am offering you a chance to withdraw. Take your fleet and return home. We will let you go in peace. No more attacks. No more harassment. Just leave human space and never return." Krenth's pride screamed at him to refuse. But his duty was to his people. He looked at his casualty reports. He looked at the empty supply depot indicators. He looked at the tactical map showing human attacks across council space. He had spent 40 years learning how to win battles. But humans were not fighting battles. They were fighting a war. And war, he was learning, was different. "All ships," Krenth ordered. "We are withdrawing from human space. Set course for home." His officers looked at him in shock. "But sir, we have not defeated them." "No," Krenth said quietly. "We have not. And we will not. We lost this war the moment we started it." As the council fleet limped back toward their own space, General Hanul stood down her strike teams. Jiwon stopped her hacking operations. Admiral Deho recalled his ships. Ambassador Jiho stood in the new human council chamber. Representatives from every human colony watched him. "We have won. Not by being stronger, but by refusing to fight on their terms. We showed them that military might means nothing when the people refuse to be conquered. But at what cost?" Someone asked. Jiho nodded slowly. 13 colonies evacuated. 800 human casualties. Billions of credits in abandoned infrastructure. It was not cheap, but we are free. And we proved something important. We proved that we do not need them. Now we must prove that we can build something better. In the council chamber, High Speaker Norinth's glow had turned dim gray. The color of shame. The war had failed. The economy was collapsing. Member species were rebelling. And through it all, one fact was undeniable. They needed the humans more than the humans needed them. 1 year had passed since humanity left the Galactic Council. The war was over, but its consequences were just beginning to be understood. Sora was a human merchant who had traded across the galaxy for 20 years. She knew dozens of species and hundreds of worlds. Now she traveled through former council space, documenting what she found. Her ship landed on Kraith, an industrial world that once produced advanced electronics. The spaceport was half empty. Most of the docking bays were dark. When she walked through the main terminal, she saw crowds of unemployed workers standing around with nothing to do. A Kraith worker approached her. "You are human?" he asked in broken standard language. Sora nodded carefully. Relations with council species were still tense. The worker grabbed her hand. "Thank you. Thank you for leaving. We did not understand. We thought you were taking our jobs. Now we see. You were teaching us. Without you, we cannot work. We do not have the knowledge." Sora felt uncomfortable. "I did not want anyone to suffer. We suffered before. We just did not see it. The council told us we were skilled workers. But we were only following human instructions. Now those instructions are gone and we realize we learned nothing." From Kraith, Sora traveled to Verdant, an agricultural moon. The farms should have been thriving. Instead, she saw crops rotting in fields. The harvest had come, but there was no way to preserve or transport the food. "We grew food for 50 worlds," a Verdant farmer told her. "Humans organized the transport. They maintained the refrigeration systems. They managed the distribution networks. We just planted and harvested. Now we have food, but no way to share it. Children are starving on other worlds while we watch food rot." Sora moved on to Station Gamma, a major hub in council space. The station should have been bustling with activity. Instead, half of it was dark. The main reactor had failed 3 months ago. Without power, life support only worked in certain sections. 2 million people had evacuated. The rest lived in cramped conditions. A station engineer showed her the reactor. "It is quantum-based technology from the founders. Very advanced. Very complex. Humans maintained it for 200 years. They trained their children, who trained their children. Now that knowledge is gone. We have manuals, but they are written for people who already understand the basics. Can you not learn?" Sora asked. "In 10 years, perhaps. If we survive that long." The engineer looked exhausted. "We thought humans were simple maintenance workers. We did not realize they were keeping our most critical systems alive." Back on Earth, Dr. Hyun compiled all of Sora's reports. He added data from intelligence sources, from defectors, from public broadcasts. The result was a massive document that showed exactly what humanity had contributed to galactic civilization. Ambassador Jiho read it carefully. Then he called a meeting of human leadership. "We knew we did important work," he said, "but I do not think any of us understood how important. We were not just workers. We were the connection between old technology and new species. The council founders built amazing things, but they kept the knowledge to themselves. When humans arrived, we learned how it all worked. Then we maintained it. We taught others how to use it. We kept civilization running, and they treated us like servants," Admiral Deho said bitterly. "Yes, but that is past. The question now is what we do next." Before they could decide, something unexpected happened. A fleet of ships appeared at the edge of human space. Not warships. Refugee vessels. Thousands of them. Ships from minor council species fleeing the collapse. Minister Dabin was the first to respond. She was 50 years old, a skilled diplomat who believed in compassion. But she also believed in justice. She opened communications with the refugee fleet. "Why have you come here?" a voice answered. "We have nowhere else to go. Our worlds are dying. The council has abandoned us. We know humans have no reason to help us. We stood by while you were mistreated. But we are begging, please, our children are starving." The human council chamber erupted in argument. Some people wanted to turn them away. Let them suffer as we did. Others argued for help. "We are better than the council. We do not abandon the innocent." Captain Mireille stood to speak. If we turn them away, we prove the Council was right about us. We prove that mercy is weakness. We prove that all species are inherently selfish. But if we help, we show something different. Ambassador Jiho listened to all sides. Then he made his decision. We will accept refugees, but on our terms. They will work. They will contribute. They will follow our laws. We will teach them what they need to know. We will not be their servants. We will be their partners. The vote passed, barely. Many humans were still angry. But the decision was made. The refugees settled on human worlds. They worked in factories, on farms, and mines. Human engineers taught them skills the Council never bothered to share. Human teachers educated their children. Slowly, these species learned to be self-sufficient. One refugee, a young mother from a minor species, spoke to Sora. On my world, the Council told us humans were dangerous, primitive, unable to understand advanced concepts. Now I see the truth. You understood everything. You just chose not to dominate with that knowledge. Meanwhile, in Council space, the situation grew worse. High Speaker Norinth convened an emergency session. Only 90 species attended. 2/3 of the Council members had withdrawn to handle their own crises. We must discuss the human situation, Norinth said. Its glow was dim, tired. The ancient being had lived for thousands of years. It had never seen the Council so broken. Councillor Tavik stood. He looked older now. His scales had lost their shine. For once, he did not speak with arrogance. We need them back. Not as junior members. Not as resources to exploit. As equals, maybe more than equals. We need their knowledge, their skills, their willingness to help others. A representative from a minor species interrupted. Why would they return? We treated them terribly. We ignored their suffering. We tried to conquer them. Why would they ever trust us again? The chamber fell silent. No one had an answer. Seeker Praxis was a neutral scholar who had documented everything. He was not a member of any Council species. His people maintained independence specifically to record history objectively. Now he addressed the Council. You are asking the wrong question. The question is not why would humans return. The question is why would you deserve to have them return? You built a civilization based on hierarchy. The strong above the weak, the old above the young. You took species with valuable knowledge and treated them as servants. Then you acted surprised when they left. What should we have done? Someone asked. Treated them as partners. Shared knowledge instead of hoarding it. Listened when they spoke. Protected them when they were attacked. Basic decency. Instead, you saw them as tools. And tools, when mistreated, eventually break or walk away. Seeker Praxis paused. The humans did not destroy the Galactic Council. You destroyed it yourselves. They simply refused to go down with you. In the Human Council chamber, Ambassador Jiho addressed the representatives. We have a choice to make. The Galactic Council is failing. Parts of it are already gone. Soon, the whole structure will collapse. We can watch from afar, or we can try to build something better. What did you have in mind? Someone asked. A new system. Not a council where some species rule over others. A federation where all species are truly equal. Where decisions require majority support, not approval from elders. Where exploitation is forbidden by law, not just discouraged by custom. Will the elder species ever agree to that? Minister Dabin asked. Jiho smiled sadly. Probably not, but the minor species will, and there are far more of them. If we offer an alternative, they will come. And eventually, when the elder species are alone with their pride and their failing technology, they will have to choose. Join as equals or fade into history. The council chamber was quiet. Then slowly, one by one, the representatives stood. They were voting, not with words but with action. They were choosing to build something new. On his command ship, now docked at Earth, Admiral Deho received a message from an old acquaintance. Admiral Krenth, the commander who had tried to invade human space. I do not expect forgiveness, Krenth's message said. I followed orders to attack your people. But I have learned something. I spent 40 years in the council military winning battles. I thought that made me wise. I was a fool. Would you be willing to teach me? Not as an enemy. Not even as an ally, simply as one soldier to another. I want to understand how you think. Deho considered the request for a long time. Then he replied, Come to Earth, bring no weapons. Bring only a willingness to learn. We will teach you. Not because we forgive easily, but because the galaxy needs leaders who understand that strength is not the same as wisdom. As the year ended, Humanity stood at a crossroads. They had won their freedom. They had survived the war. They had proven their worth. But the real question remained. What would they do with that victory? 2 years had passed since humanity left the Galactic Council. The Council was a shadow of its former self. And then the Harvesters arrived. No one knew where they came from. They appeared at the edge of Council space in ships larger than any ever seen. They did not communicate. They did not negotiate. They simply consumed. Entire planets were stripped of resources. Stars were harvested for energy. Civilizations that had existed for millennia disappeared in days. The Council military tried to fight. Their weapons were useless. The Harvesters had technology far beyond anything the galaxy had seen. Council ships were destroyed by the hundreds. Millions of civilians died trying to evacuate. Admiral Krenth had retired after the failed war with humanity. Now he was recalled to service. He stood in the emergency council session, looking at tactical displays that showed the Harvesters advancing through Council space like a wave of destruction. "We need help," Counselor Tavik said quietly. The proud Velkari looked broken. His homeworld was directly in the Harvesters' path. "My people have days, maybe hours. We cannot stop them." High Speaker Norinth's glow pulsed erratically. Fear. The ancient being had survived for thousands of years. Now it faced extinction. "We must contact the humans. Why would they help us?" a representative asked. "After what we did to them? Because they are better than we are," Krenth said. Everyone stared at him. He continued. "The humans fought us using tactics we could not match. Guerrilla warfare, information warfare, economic warfare. The Harvesters use overwhelming force and advanced technology. If anyone knows how to fight an enemy with superior strength, it is humanity." The Council voted. It was unanimous. They would ask for help. But who would go? Who could possibly convince humanity to risk their lives for species that had treated them so badly? Ambassador Velkor volunteered. She was a young Velkari diplomat, born after the war with humanity. She had studied human culture. She believed in reconciliation. Her elders thought she was naive. She thought they were cowards who refused to admit their mistakes. Velkor traveled to human space in a small, unarmed ship. It took 3 days to reach Earth. 3 days spent wondering if humans would simply destroy her ship on sight. When she entered human space, a patrol intercepted her. "State your business," the patrol commander said. "I request an audience with Ambassador Jiho. I come unarmed, without authority to negotiate. I come only to ask for help." They escorted her to Earth, to the council chamber humanity had built. It was different from the Galactic Council. The seats were arranged in circles, not tiers. No one sat above anyone else. Ambassador Jiho was old now, nearly 70. His hair was completely white, but his eyes were still sharp. He listened as Velkor explained the situation. The Harvesters, the deaths, the hopelessness. When she finished, she did not make excuses. "We wronged your people. We exploited you. We dismissed your suffering. I cannot undo what was done. My species and our allies made terrible choices, but millions of innocents are dying. Species that never harmed humanity. I'm not asking you to rejoin the Council. I am asking for your help against a threat that will eventually reach your borders as well." Jiho was silent for a long moment. Then he said, "I will present your request to our leadership. You will have an answer soon. You may wait here." The human leadership met in private. The debate was fierce. Minister Dabin argued for intervention. "If we stand by while others suffer, we become what we hated. We prove that mercy died when we left the Council." Admiral Deho countered. "The Council let our people die. They ignored our pleas for help. Why should we sacrifice ourselves for them now?" Sunhee spoke next. She was 30 years old, an officer in the human fleet. She had lost her mother and 2 siblings in the Omega-7 raid. Her voice was quiet but filled with pain. "They killed my family. The Velkari attacked our colony. The Council did nothing. Now they want us to save them? Let them burn." Captain Mirai understood Sunhee's anger, but she offered a different view. "The question is not whether they deserve our help. The question is who we are when no one is watching. Do we act based on principles or revenge?" Dr. Hyun, who had lost his faith in the Council but not in cooperation, spoke carefully. "I learned the Council was corrupt. I learned that systems built on exploitation inevitably fail. But I never stopped believing in the idea of species working together. Maybe we cannot save the Council, But we can save the idea. We can show the galaxy what real unity looks like. The debate continued for hours. Finally, Ambassador Jiho called for a vote. It was close. Many humans were still angry, still hurt. But in the end, compassion won over vengeance. Jiho returned to the chamber where Velcor waited. We will help, but not as subordinates or servants. We will fight as independent allies under our command using our methods. We will not rejoin your council. We will not submit to your authority. We help because we choose to, not because we owe you anything. Velcor felt tears on her face. In her culture, tears were shameful. Right now, she did not care. Thank you. On behalf of billions of people who will live because of this choice, thank you. The human fleet mobilized. Admiral Deho commanded the operation. Captain Mirai led the first wave. General Hanul coordinated ground operations. Jiwan prepared her cyber warfare systems. Boyung and thousands of engineers developed new weapons specifically designed to counter harvester technology. Dr. Hyun traveled to Council Space to study the harvesters. He examined destroyed ships, analyzed their tactics, searched for weaknesses. What he found was disturbing. The harvesters were efficient. They used resources perfectly. They adapted to threats. They were in some ways the perfect enemy, but they were also predictable. They always used overwhelming force. They always followed the same patterns. They never adapted their overall strategy, only their tactics. Hyun sent his report to Deho. The harvesters expect conventional warfare, large fleets, direct combat, defensive positions. We need to do the opposite. Hit them where they are weak. Avoid their strength. Make them waste resources chasing us. It was the same strategy humanity had used against the Council. But this time, humans would teach others how to fight that way. The combined fleet assembled at the edge of Harvester territory. Council ships formed the main battle line. Human ships scattered in small, fast groups. Admiral Krenth commanded the Council forces. He had learned from his defeat. He no longer expected to understand everything. He simply trusted that humans knew what they were doing. The first battle was a test. Council ships engaged the harvesters directly, absorbing their attention. Meanwhile, human strike teams infiltrated behind harvester lines. They did not attack the main ships. They attacked supply vessels, communication nodes, resource collection systems. The harvesters, designed to expect frontal assault, did not know how to respond to attacks from multiple directions. Their formations broke apart trying to defend everything. Their efficiency decreased. On the ground, refugees from Council species watched the battle on public displays. For the first time in months, they saw the harvesters retreating. For the first time, they felt hope. A Velkari mother held her daughter close. The humans are helping us. Even after what we did to them, her daughter, too young to remember the war, asked, "Why are they helping?" The mother thought about it. Because they are better than we were. The war against the harvesters would take time, months, maybe years. But for the first time, victory seemed possible. And it was possible because humans had made a choice. Not the easy choice. Not the choice that felt satisfying in the moment. But the choice that was right. Sunhee stood on the bridge of her ship watching as her squadron escorted evacuees to safety. She thought about her mother. About her siblings. About the anger she had carried for years. She thought about the Velkari civilians below. Terrified and helpless. She could not forgive the Velkari leadership. Not yet, maybe never. But she could save these people. She could break the cycle of suffering. She could prove that humanity was better than its enemies. That would have to be enough. The war against the harvesters had been going on for 6 months. The combined fleet of humans and Council species fought together, though tensions remained. Admiral Daiho coordinated overall strategy. Admiral Krenth commanded Council forces. They met daily to plan operations. The meetings were professional but not friendly. Too much history stood between them. Captain Mirai led the human ships in another raid on harvester supply lines. Her methods were effective but chaotic by Council standards. Council officers watched in confusion as human ships split up, regrouped, and attacked from unexpected angles. It looked like disorder. It was actually carefully controlled chaos. After one particularly successful operation, Krenth contacted Mirai. "I need to understand your tactics. My officers are trying to copy them, but they fail. They follow the steps, but not the thinking behind them." Mirai considered his request. Then she made a decision. "Send your best officers to my ship. I will teach them." But they must forget everything they learned in council academies. They must be willing to think differently. A week later, a dozen council officers arrived on the UNSS Perseverance. They expected lectures and manuals. Instead, Mirai took them to the simulation room. No lessons, just problems. Solve them however you want. The council officers tried to use standard tactics: formation flying, concentrated firepower, defensive positions. Every simulation they lost. After the fifth failure, one of them asked in frustration, "How are we supposed to win? The enemy is stronger in every way." Mirai smiled. "That is the wrong question. The right question is, how do we make their strength work against them?" She ran the simulation again. This time she showed them. Human ships scattered when the enemy concentrated forces. They regrouped when the enemy spread out. They attacked supply lines, forcing the enemy to divert ships. They used the environment, hiding behind asteroids and radiation clouds. They turned the enemy's strength into weakness. Slowly, the council officers began to understand. Warfare was not about being stronger. It was about being smarter, more flexible, more willing to break the rules. Meanwhile, on a harvester-occupied world, General Hanul coordinated a rescue operation. Council civilians were trapped in a city surrounded by harvester machines. The direct approach would cost thousands of lives. So Hanul did something different. Her teams created distractions, explosions in empty buildings, false sensor readings, fake distress calls. The harvesters, following their programming, responded to every threat. While they were distracted, human soldiers slipped into the city through underground tunnels. They evacuated 10,000 civilians before the harvesters realized what had happened. A council military observer watched in amazement. "You made them respond to nothing. You used their efficiency against them." Hanul nodded. "The harvesters always respond to threats. They cannot ignore anything. So we give them hundreds of fake threats while we accomplish the real mission. They are strong, but they are predictable. Predictable enemies can be manipulated." In space, G1's cyber warfare team had been studying harvester communications. The harvesters did not communicate like biological species. They used quantum encrypted signals that changed constantly. Breaking the encryption would be impossible, so G1 did not try to break it. Instead, she copied it. She created false harvester signals. Orders to regroup. Warnings of attacks that were not happening. Resource shortage alerts. The harvesters, trusting their own communication protocols, responded to every false signal. Their fleets moved in circles. Their resources were misallocated. Their coordination broke down. A Velkari technician working with G1's team asked, "How did you think of this?" "We have been trying to decrypt their messages for months," G1 shrugged. "Decryption is hard. Copying is easy. We do not need to understand what they are saying. We just need to sound like them when we lie." As victories accumulated, something unexpected happened. Council species began to volunteer for combined operations, not because they were ordered to, but because they wanted to learn. They saw human methods working. They saw their own people being saved. They wanted to be part of that. Boyoung found himself teaching engineering to aliens from a dozen different species. They were smart, skilled, and eager. They had just never been allowed to innovate. The council had always told them to follow established procedures, use approved technologies, and never take risks. Now, free from those restrictions, they created amazing things. A young Kraith engineer named Relic worked with Boyoung to design a weapon that disrupted harvester shields. It used principles that council military engineers had declared impossible. But Relic did not care about what was impossible. He cared about what worked. When the weapon succeeded, Relic looked at Boyoung with tears in his eyes. "My whole life I was told I was not smart enough to innovate, that only elder species could create new technology. You taught me that was a lie." Boyoung felt uncomfortable with the praise. "You were always smart enough. You just needed someone to believe in you." In the middle of a critical battle, Sunhee's squadron received a distress call. A Velkari colony ship had been damaged by harvester fire. Life support was failing. 3,000 civilians, mostly children, would die in hours. The colony ship was far from Sunhee's assigned patrol route. Saving it would mean abandoning her mission. Her crew watched her, waiting for orders. Everyone knew about her family. Everyone knew what the Velkari had done. Sunhee stared at her screen. She could see the colony ship on sensors. She could almost see the faces of the children inside. She thought about her mother, who had taught her that being strong meant protecting the weak. She thought about her siblings who had never gotten the chance to grow up. All ships, Sun He ordered. Change course. We have people to save. They reached the colony ship with less than an hour to spare. Sun He's engineers worked with the Velkari crew to stabilize life support. Her medical team treated the injured. When the colony ship was finally safe, a Velkari mother approached Sun He. Thank you for saving us. I know about Omega-7. I know what my people did to yours. You had every right to let us die. Sun He looked at the woman's daughter clinging to her mother's side. The child was about the same age her sister had been. I did not do it for your people. I did it because someone has to break the cycle. Later, Ambassador Velkor found Sun He in the medical bay, treating minor injuries from the rescue. The Velkari diplomat sat down beside her. What you did today was remarkable. Sun He kept working. It was necessary, more than that. You chose mercy when you had every reason to choose revenge. That takes real strength, Sun He paused. Looked at Velkor. I still have not forgiven your people. I do not know if I ever will. But I will not become like those who hurt me. I will not let their cruelty define who I am. That is all anyone can ask. As the months passed, the combined fleet pushed the harvesters back. It was slow, difficult work. But they were winning. More importantly, they were learning to work together. Council officers and human soldiers fought side by side. Engineers from a dozen species collaborated on new technologies. Civilians who had once feared each other now shared refugee camps. Admiral Deho and Admiral Krenth stood on the bridge of the Perseverance, watching a joint operation unfold perfectly. Council ships and human ships moved together, each compensating for the other's weaknesses. It was not perfect unity, but it was real cooperation. We could not have done this without you, Krenth admitted. We were too rigid, too proud, too convinced that our way was the only way. Deho nodded slowly. Yes, you were. But you are learning. That is what matters. Not that you were wrong, but that you were willing to admit it and change. After this is over, what happens? Will humans ever trust the Council again? That depends on the Council, Deho said. If you rebuild the same system that exploited us, we will never return. But if you build something new, something fair, then maybe we can be partners instead of enemies. The final major battle came at a harvester staging area near the galactic core. It was a massive operation involving hundreds of ships and thousands of soldiers. Humans and Council species fought together, using the tactics they had learned from each other. The battle lasted 3 days. When it ended, the harvesters began a full retreat from the galaxy. They were not destroyed. They were just pushed back. But that was enough. The galaxy had bought itself time. Time to rebuild. Time to heal. Time to learn. In the aftermath of the battle, representatives from Council species met with human leaders. Not in the old Council chambers. In a neutral location. To discuss the future. High Speaker Norinth, its glow steady for the first time in years, addressed the gathering. The Galactic Council as it existed is dead. We cannot pretend otherwise. The question is what we build to replace it. Ambassador Jiho, older and tired, stood to respond. Humanity will not return to a system that treats species as tools. We will not accept tiers or hierarchies. If we are to work together, it must be as equals. Councillor Tavek, humbled by 2 years of crisis, nodded agreement. We propose dissolving the old council. In its place, we create a true federation. Every species, one vote. Decisions by majority, not by elder approval. Mutual defense and trade, but no mandatory tithes. Every species keeps its sovereignty. It was everything humanity had asked for. Everything the old council would never have granted. They had to lose everything before they could. 5 years had passed since humanity left the Galactic Council. The old council was gone, replaced by the Galactic Federation. The Federation chambers were designed differently. No tiers, no seats of honor. Just concentric circles where every species sat as equals. Ambassador Jiho, now 75 years old and ready to retire, sat in these chambers one final time. His hair was white, his hands shook slightly, but his mind was sharp. He watched as the first official session of the Federation began. Minister Dabin had replaced him as humanity's chief representative. She was 55 now, experienced and respected. She stood to address the assembly. Today we formalize what we have built through struggle and cooperation. This federation is not perfect, but it is founded on principles that the old council abandoned. Equality, mutual respect, shared sacrifice, Ambassador Velkor. representing the Velkari, rose to speak. Her hands trembled as she held a prepared statement. On behalf of my people, I offer a formal apology for the Omega-7 raid, for ignoring human suffering, for treating humanity as resources rather than partners. Words cannot erase what was done, but words are where reconciliation must begin. The chamber fell silent. Apologies from elder species were rare. Many representatives from minor species looked shocked. Some humans looked skeptical. Dabin responded carefully. We accept your apology, but we judge you by actions, not words. The real test is whether the Federation upholds the principles we have established. The first Federation vote was symbolic but meaningful. A memorial would be built honoring all species harmed by the old Council's policies. Humanity's name was at the top of the list, but it was far from alone. Dozens of species had suffered exploitation, neglect, or worse. The vote passed unanimously. Seeker Praxis, the neutral scholar, had spent 5 years documenting everything. His comprehensive history was published galaxy-wide. It was required reading in Federation schools. The final chapter was titled What They Forfeited. In it, Praxis wrote clearly and without emotion about the old Council's failures. The Council forfeited innovation by dismissing ideas from species they deemed inferior. They forfeited resilience by creating dependencies they could exploit. They forfeited loyalty by treating allies as resources. They forfeited wisdom by refusing to learn from those they considered young. Most critically, they forfeited their future by choosing temporary power over lasting prosperity. Humanity did not destroy the Galactic Council. The Council destroyed itself. Humanity simply refused to participate in its own oppression. The book became controversial. Elder species called it biased. Minor species called it truth. But no one could dispute the facts. The old Council had failed. The new Federation was humanity's vision made real. Captain Mireille, now Admiral Mireille, commanded the Federation Fleet Academy. Officers from dozens of species studied there, learning tactics that were once exclusively human. But more than tactics, she taught them to think differently, to question authority, to value every person's contribution, to solve problems creatively rather than rigidly following procedures. One of her best students was a young Velkari named Karax. He had been born during the war years. He had no memory of the old Council's arrogance. He only knew the Federation's principles. When he graduated top of his class, Mireille personally presented him with his officer's commission. Your people and mine have a difficult history, she told him. But you are not responsible for the past. You are only responsible for building a better future. Karax saluted. Thank you, Admiral. I will not let you down. Dr. Hyun had established the Federation University on a neutral world. Students from every species studied together, not in separate programs based on seniority, not in hierarchies of elder and junior, just students learning from each other. The curriculum covered everything from xenobiology to engineering to philosophy. The most popular class was taught by Hyun himself. It was called Systems of Oppression and How They Fail. He used the old Galactic Council as the primary case study. Students learned how systems built on exploitation inevitably collapse, how short-term thinking destroys long-term prosperity, how treating people as tools rather than partners creates enemies instead of allies. A Kraith student named Relic, now a professor himself, told his students, the Council failed because they confused control with leadership. They thought keeping others weak would keep themselves strong. But civilizations do not grow by holding others down. They grow by lifting everyone up. Jiwon ran the Federation Communication Network. It connected every world, every species without censorship or control. Information flowed freely. Ideas were shared openly. The network ran on principles of transparency and access. No species could dominate it. No government could silence dissent. It was the opposite of the Council's controlled information systems. When elder species complained about criticism, Jiwon responded simply. Truth does not require your permission to exist. Boyoung had become the Federation's chief infrastructure engineer. He led teams of engineers from dozens of species, designing systems that benefited everyone, ships that any species could operate, stations that accommodated different environmental needs, technology that was open source rather than proprietary. His teams worked on the principle that good engineering served all people, not just the powerful. A memorial was built on Earth for those who died at Omega-7. 20,000 names carved in stone. Families came to remember, to grieve, to promise that their loved ones had not died in vain. Sunhee visited often, bringing flowers for her mother and siblings. One day, Ambassador Velcor found her there. She did not speak at first, just stood quietly beside Sunhee. Finally, Velcor said softly, "I visit memorials on my own world, for those who died in the collapse after humanity left. Children who starved because our leaders were too proud to ask for help. I cannot give you back what you lost, but I can make sure it never happens again." "That has to be enough," Sunhee looked at her. "At this former enemy who had become something like a friend, we are not responsible for what our elders did, but we are responsible for what we do now. You have chosen to build instead of destroy, to admit mistakes instead of hiding them. That matters." In the Federation military, Admiral Krenth taught at the academy alongside Admiral Mire. He was 70 years old, retired from active duty, but not from teaching. His classes focused on the lessons he had learned the hard way. How pride leads to failure, how underestimating enemies leads to defeat, how strength without wisdom is weakness, one of his students asked. "Admiral, you lost to the humans. Does that not bother you?" Krenth smiled. "I lost a war, but I gained an education. I learned that my entire understanding of warfare was limited. I learned that there are many ways to be strong. Most importantly, I learned humility. That lesson was worth the defeat." High Speaker Norinth had stepped down from leadership. The ancient energy being no longer made decisions for others. Instead, it served as an advisor, a living library of mistakes not to repeat. When young leaders asked for guidance, Norinth always said the same thing. "Listen to those you think are beneath you. They see things you cannot see. They understand things you have forgotten. Pride blinds more effectively than any weapon." The Federation was not perfect. Species still competed. Conflicts still arose. Old prejudices did not disappear overnight. But there was a fundamental difference. When problems occurred, species worked together to solve them. When injustices happened, there were systems to address them. When innovations emerged, they were shared rather than hoarded. Ambassador Jiho returned to Earth for the final time. He was old, tired, ready to rest. The leaders who would replace him were young and idealistic, much like Dr. Hyun had been decades ago. They asked him the question that everyone asked. Was it worth it? All the struggle, the war, the suffering? Jiho sat in his garden looking at the sky, thinking about everything that had happened. Everything humanity had sacrificed. Everything they had gained. Finally, he answered, "We did not win by being stronger or smarter. We won by refusing to accept injustice even when accepting it would have been easier. We showed the galaxy that dignity matters more than comfort, that principles matter more than survival." He paused, watching ships cross the sky, ships from 100 different species, traveling freely through Federation space. That is what they forfeited when they pushed us away. Not our labor or our innovation, but the chance to be part of something truly great. They had an opportunity to build a civilization where every species thrived. Instead, they built one where they ruled. In the end, they learned what they lost. I just wish they had not needed to suffer to understand. The young leaders listened quietly. Then one of them asked, "What do we do now? How do we make sure the Federation does not become what the Council was?" Jiho smiled. "Never stop questioning. Never accept that any species is more important than another. Never forget that systems built on exploitation will fail. And most importantly, never forget the price of freedom. It was paid in blood and sacrifice. Honor that sacrifice by building something worthy of it." As the sun set, Jiho walked through his garden one last time. He thought about the day he stood in the council chambers and announced humanity's withdrawal. He thought about the fear, the anger, the determination. He thought about the war they never wanted but won anyway. He thought about the species they chose.